when you hold your breath or when you're exercising and you're getting fatigued, what is it that's actually triggering you to get tired? Why are you getting fatigued? Why do you need to breathe more when you hold your... Why do I need to breathe more? Well, a lot of people think because it's a lack of oxygen. It's not the lack of oxygen. It's actually a buildup of metabolic byproducts, particularly one called carbon dioxide. It's kind of this fundamental thing that we understand in the human science world, in the exercise physiology world. But common knowledge, it's most people would pick A, oxygen, and they'd lose Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Sorry, Eddie, you lost. So we're just trying to prepare you for that when you're going to be on that game show. And know that it's actually because of the buildup of carbon dioxide that triggers, because carbon dioxide is a waste product of cellular respiration. And so what comes along with that is the buildup of hydrogen ions. So we're just going to dive into a little bit of, why we get fatigued during exercise. We'll go into the practical, but like the theoretical of why it actually occurs. So we know that as we get fatigued and we work harder and we require more oxygen to a specific tissue, you're going to get these buildup of waste products. And one of them, CO2, which diffuses across the blood-brain barrier. It carries with it, it collects in the extracellular fluid, the CO2, and then that leads to the level of increased hydrogen ions and decreasing pH. And so this building up, this accumulation of hydrogen ions, that's what hinders nerve conduction. Nerve conduction is basically every movement in the body, every involuntary muscular contraction in the body requires nerve conduction, like a light switch, an action potential is also another word for it. And so every time we lift a weight, every muscle contraction requires nerve conduction. So when we build up CO2, you build up hydrogen ions, you inhibit nerve conduction. So if you inhibit nerve conduction, your ability to exert force, your ability to maximally produce force, whether you're lifting a weight or having to run a sprint and exert speed, power, maximal efforts, is inhibited. It's not eliminated, it's inhibited, it's reduced. And so continually working harder and longer builds up these metabolic byproducts. And this makes sense because our body has rate limiters. It has like a cap. We're not just beings of unlimited potential. We have limits, okay? And so this is a physiological cap that signals to our body, you're going to slow down whether you like it or not. And it's going to happen because we have these safeguards, buildup of CO2, buildup of hydrogen ions, that's going to inhibit nerve conduction. It's going to slow you down, okay? That's why eventually, the human can't run forever away from the tiger. It's going to slow down eventually and get eaten. Otherwise, nothing would ever prey on us, okay? So, and this practically speaking, like any activity like over 30 seconds outside of that ATP PC system, above 10 seconds, where if we're just repeatedly doing jumps and sprints and throws or any type of activity that we are trying to do to produce power, become more powerful, become faster, but we're doing it above 10, 20, 30 seconds, well, if my intention is I want to help you jump higher, I'm working with an athlete, I want you to jump higher, run faster. Well, I'm not doing 30, 40 seconds of jumps or sprints repeatedly like a circuit class or a CrossFit class. It's counterintuitive to the adaptation I'm trying to make. So practically speaking, if you want to get faster, if you're working with somebody to improve those qualities, become more powerful, exert more force, which is what we're trying to do when we're lifting maximal weights, then it is counterintuitive in many ways to that to do things to fatigue. Because as you fatigue, metabolic byproducts build up, as we talked about, nerve conduction is inhibited, and the amount of force you can produce massively reduced. But you need to produce maximal force in order to continually practice and rehearse that, in order to improve your capacity to improve your ability, I should say, to exert force. Now, what doing things to fatigue will help you do, yes, you will improve your capacity, your aerobic capacity, and your ability to tolerate fatigue and buttress and buffer byproducts. That will improve when you do things to fatigue, activities to fatigue. But let's not get it twisted. We are not getting you more powerful beyond that 5, 10, 15-second mark, or that 5, 10 rep mark-ish, okay, depending on the activity, okay? So let's get that clear, number one. And then on the other side, why do we need to breathe more? This interesting thing, like actually the hydrogen ions not only inhibit nerve conduction, but they actually trigger a contraction of our diaphragm and intercostal muscles. Intercostal muscles are the muscles around our lungs attached to our rib cage that help any muscle that helps us breathe. And so hydrogen ions causes a contraction of the diaphragm and increases the rate and depth of respiration. And so it's this automatic mechanism so you can get more oxygen in to the tissue and expel more CO2 out to, continue doing what you're doing. So there is this beautiful kind of synergy that occurs with expelling carbon dioxide and inhaling it in, and how it's triggered as a result of an increase in carbon dioxide, and when I say not because of oxygen, like the oxygen requirements that change during maximal intensity activities, like if we look at some of I'm remembering a graph from my studies and I can't recall it and find it, but what we're talking about is like the CO2 changes that trigger respiration. That's the major predominant thing. And we're not saying oxygen plays no role in the ability in why you need to breathe more. We're just saying it plays like a very, very small role, and it's overblown amongst the common individual who thinks, oh, I'm breathing more because I'm lacking oxygen. It's not because you're lacking oxygen, it's because you're building up CO2. So then they're like, how can we use our breathing techniques to then, like intelligent breathing techniques, like controlled hyperventilation, to then recover more effectively? Then that's where we get really interesting, and like we can start developing a really practical conversation from this foundation of physiology. And maybe I'll talk about that later if anybody's interested. But there's some respiration physiology 101 for you.